Everyone, good evening and welcome to Social Work 668. This is week 8. This week we are going to be discussing client satisfaction surveys. We are also going to be talking about sampling strategies. So the information that we are going to cover today is really going to move us into the last leg of our journey, which is thinking about our program evaluation. Not panic, we are covering this a little bit early, but in my experience, the program evaluation, which is paper 3, is the most intensive in terms of kind of chunking different sections out. So from here on out, every week we are going to be focusing on a different aspect of the paper through your weekly journals or blogs or discussion boards. So we kick that off right now. So I will share my screen and we can get started. Okay, so here we go. Client satisfaction surveys and sampling strategies. So last week we touched on formative and process evaluations, also trying to understand how they fit into our overall evaluation plan. Stay tuned as we really transition to thinking about our third type of program evaluation, which is outcome evaluation. You also had two very intertwined discussion boards assignments from the previous week and this past week. So you've been asked to first write about your logic model, secondly, to diagram or draw your logic model. You are all doing an outstanding job on those assignments, and I've been giving you feedback, comments, and really seeing you interact with each other on the discussion board. When you ask a question on the discussion board, I'm also chiming in to make sure you're getting all of your questions answered. My initial feedback for you on the logic model as assignment is that some of you, a small handful of you, are actually confusing um, the outcomes of the logic model. So what you want to think about in terms of the differences between outputs and outcomes is that outputs are really products that are going to come from your intervention. So that could be service units. So let's say you're implementing a new program that involves a new service or offering for the client. That would be service units. Let's say a new kind of CBT intervention. Then you might want to say this is, implementing a new 8-week session with clients. Others of you are thinking about the differences between outputs and outcomes. So meaning that instead of thinking of, service units or products, such as, let's say there's a manual, training, new offerings for parents, you're thinking of this in terms of outcomes, which is a very key and essential part of the logic model. It's just different than outputs. So let's quickly cover what outcomes are. So outcomes are the items or the phenomenons that we want to increase or decrease as a result of our intervention. So let's say we are implementing an intervention to address employee burnout amongst child welfare workers. We might want to increase retention and then decrease burnout. So I want you to start thinking strategically, particularly what might be the short-term outcomes and what might be the long-term outcomes. So just bear in mind that outputs are different than outcomes, and you want to make those two different sections or maybe columns or parts of your diagrams for your logic models. And also, lastly, our survey results are in. So this is Sunday night that I'm analyzing our survey data. This is the survey that's really aimed for me to gather midterm feedback on how I can improve my performance. So I'm just going to quickly go over the results with you before we get into our content for the week. So those of you who answered the question, what helped in your learning, you liked the video lectures, also kind of looking at the ins and outs of how your program runs. Some to select review, that sort of kept you on task. You can actually click on a button under each task in Blackboard to show that you've accomplished it. That way you can kind of jump in and out of Blackboard. So that was something that you all appreciate. What hindered your learning? Many of you said the thing that hindered your learning the most is actually program evaluation itself is still a little bit over your head. I just want you to sit tight a little bit with that because this course is really an entire process. So just take it 1 week at a time. Program evaluation is really an expanded learning experience, starting with the needs assessment, moving to the logic model, moving to the last part, which we're really diving into how to evaluate our program using research methods. So my real goal for all of you is to actually have the capacity and build skills to be able to implement and evaluate your own programs in the future as social workers. So what suggestions do you have to improve the course so it better supports your learning and learning of other students? Many of you didn't really have suggestions other than you liked the way that the course was organized, which thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Please reach out if you have any additional suggestions. I know some of you are do a lot of your coursework on Monday. So please let me know if there's anything I can do to help support your learning. What did you do to help yourself in this course? I add this question in because I really want you all to kind of act as a learning community, meaning some of you are really in a position to be able to give advice to those who are struggling in the course. So I really wanted to tap into what strategies and strengths you found to be helpful in this course that are really intrinsically motivated by you. So you shared that you watched the video that went along with the readings. You helped yourself learn, you made sure to pay attention to the material and also incorporate the feedback that I'm giving you on a weekly basis. Also making sure you're reviewing the soft chalk material, and lastly, reach out to me for any questions that you have. You all have been really active and communicative with me, and I really appreciate that because I think it keeps us all on track. What did you do that is really currently preventing or hindering your learning in the class? So some of you are saying you're struggling with not prioritizing practicum sites, taking up a lot of hours. Some of you feel like you're not keeping up to date on weekly assignments and due dates, and you haven't given yourself enough time to work on weekly assignments. So thinking about what you can do to improve your learning in this class, many of you said just get ahead and stay on top of the material, continue the weekly readings, and just giving yourself more time and staying organized. So other comments, you've said you've really liked the organization of this course and you think it's going great. So I just want to touch base with you on those survey results, and I will look at the rest of them as they come in on Monday as well. Okay, so material for this week. Every once in a while, we have students, when thinking about the logic model, comparing it to a Gantt chart. So a Gantt chart is really an organizational chart that is temporally linked, meaning that it's based on keeping track of tasks in relationship to a calendar. So that is very different than a logic model. Even though both of them kind of move chronologically from beginning to end, a logic model is different in that you are actually looking at, sort of resources, inputs, outputs, and outcomes. A Gantt chart is really just tracking tasks as you go along. For example, Gantt charts are really used in grant proposal writing. We also use them in research to make sure that we are staying on track of research-related activities. They're also used in program implementation and evaluation, but just bear in mind that they are different than the logic model. The only thing that really links them is that they're both set up chronologically. Mid-semester grades, I will be reaching out to you shortly with a calculation of where you are. By the end of the night, my grade book will be totally clear, meaning that I will have graded all of your assignments, including those of you who submitted your logic model late. So I will have an accurate picture of your grades. So for those of you who have missing assignments, I am going to fill them in with a 0. Please get with me, call me, email me so we can think of a plan moving forward. We are at midterms. I do not want anyone to fail. So it is my job and my role to really give you a realistic preview about where you are in this course. Some of you are not completing your soft chalk lessons or weekly assignments. This will bring your grade down. I really strongly suggest you complete them this week. Just remember, we can't go back. We can only move forward, and we're only halfway there. So there's still plenty of time in the course. Okay, so material for this week, we have client satisfaction surveys and sampling strategies. So this week's journal is a little chunk of your final program evaluation paper, paper 3. So it's really prompting you to think more about your sampling design. It's also asking you to identify some strengths and limitations of the sampling design that you choose. We are having an optional synchronous session tomorrow, which is Monday, February 27th, I forgot the 2, at 3 p.m., from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. I've positioned this 1 week ahead of time from when your logic models are due, because I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get all your questions asked. I will also record that synchronous session, and I will post on Blackboard for those of you who can't make it due to work obligations. Okay. So when we think about sampling designs for our final paper, which is our program evaluation, we really have two options. We have probability sampling designs and non-probability sampling designs. So the biggest difference between probability and non-probability designs is the idea of randomization. And randomization often goes into thinking about, or the decision to randomize often is very closely linked to the purpose of our evaluation and also to sample size. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but I'm going to first explain the difference between the two. So I would say the majority of my students in this course choose a non-probability sampling design. In my own work, I mainly work in non-probability sampling designs because I'm a qualitative researcher. I tend to be very kind of directive and targeted in terms of the populations I'm trying to recruit. This may also be called convenience, availability, accidental, quota, or purposive sampling strategies. Also, snowball sampling strategies are linked to this type of sampling method. They're often used when we are focusing on one single organization. So for example, the project I've been sort of focusing on a lot for this class, one from my real life, is with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians Family Safety Program. We used a non-probability sampling strategy because we did a qualitative study. It's a small organization, so we included all the people at the organization. It was really considered to be a purposive or a convenient sample. But we did not randomly select participants for that study. We included everyone who met the criteria of the study. So non-probability sampling designs may provide insight, but cannot state that the sample is scientifically determined. So that is a limitation. It's possible that other sample would produce different results or that findings may be right on. They're easy to construct, they're less involved, and they're cheaper. So because they're usually contained within a smaller organization, we don't create a sampling frame. So we typically don't create a list of every person that could possibly participate. We typically send out flyers, meet with organizations, kind of see who responds and interview them. A sampling frame would be created in a probability sampling strategy. For example, we could do a study with every single child welfare worker in the state of Kentucky. So we would get a roster and a list, and let's say randomly draw 100 people from that list and then contact them to be a part of the study. That would be considered probability sampling, but we are not talking about that when we're talking about non-probability sampling. A strength of this is that it provides a quick estimate of the group. The findings may be accurate, but they also may be a fluke or not represent reality of an organization. For non-probability sampling, it's a sampling technique where the odds of any member being selected for that sample really can't be calculated. So we don't really work in terms of talking about it in terms of chance or odds of being selected. It's really the opposite of probability sampling. So the odds do not have to be equal for a method to be considered probability sample. For example, one person could have a 10% chance of being selected, another person could have a 50% chance of being selected. It's non-probability sampling when you can't calculate the odds at all. So do not worry about odds when thinking about probability sampling design, because it's not really the point. We're really looking for people to just respond to being a part of our study. Many of you used non-probability sampling actually in your needs assessment because you reached out with people in your world, and that would be considered to be a convenient sampling, for example. Okay, so let's look at advantages and disadvantages because this is going to get us into our journal assignment for this week. So a major advantage of non-probability sampling is that it's cost and time effective. It's easy to use and can be done when it's impossible to conduct probability sampling. So let's say you have a very small population. Let's say you have a population that is hard to reach, may experience a disproportionate risk to a certain condition, might not be often engaged in research projects. Non-probability sampling is really a wise choice in that case. One major disadvantage is that it's impossible to know how well you are representing the population. You can't calculate confidence intervals, margins of error, etc. So that will just have to be noted as a limitation. But again, all sampling strategies do have limitations that are embedded in them. So it's impossible to avoid. Okay, let's move on to pathway 2, which is probability sampling. So probability sampling is used in randomized control trial. It really embraces this idea of random sampling techniques. Probability sampling is based off the fact that every member of the population is known to have an equal chance of being selected. So if you had a population of 100 people, each person would have the odds of 1 out of 100 of being chosen to be in the study. So with non-probability sampling, those odds are not equal. For example, one person might have a better chance of being chosen if they live closer to the researcher or have access to the computer or they've seen the flyer to participate. However, if you are using probability sampling, let's say with clients, every client who is being enrolled in the program would have a chance at getting the intervention. If let's say you rolled a dice, if it came up, let's say not a dice, if you flipped a quarter, that is a better example. If you flipped a quarter and came up heads, they'd get the intervention. If you flipped a quarter and came up tails, they would not get the intervention. For example, that is often how we do randomization, let's say in patient clinical trials. So using probability sampling for finding sample sizes means that you can employ certain statistical techniques or margins of errors to validate your results. So this is seen as more scientific. So a lot of people that engage in quantitative or survey research use probability sampling. A lot of people that engage in qualitative research use non-probability sampling. Okay, so next week we are going to look at single systems and group research designs. And just a friendly reminder that our logic model is due 1 week from tomorrow, March 6th. And I also want to remind you that we have tomorrow afternoon our review session. So please try to come to that at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will resend out the Zoom link tonight. Okay, so some tips for being successful for the logic model assignment. Remember to review session 6, which actually has a lot of embedded resources in it. Please review the full assignment, which is under the assignment tab that has a description of the assignment, that has the rubric, that has a video of me talking you through the assignment, and it also has an exemplar assignment from a previous student. And lastly, please contact me if you have any questions. Just to let you know, I will be out of reach for Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm actually doing data collection in Eastern Kentucky in a pretty rural area. So I might not have as much internet or phone access during Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. So please be patient with me. Okay, you have all done so well so far. I've been loving your logic models and your descriptions of them. I'm also impressed with those of you that are taking a less traditional approach, maybe not following the templates that I provided you from Wisconsin, but instead you're being creative in your approach. I'm really open to innovations. Just make sure you are looking at outcomes. So focusing on improving outcomes for clients, for workers, for participants, whoever is your population of focus, so that we can really have a successful logic model that to a very nice program evaluation. Okay, and lastly, I just want to remind you to practice some self-care. For example, walk whenever you can. I purposely do my lectures on YouTube so you can go on a walk, listen to my voice, talk you through your weekly assignments. If you do not want to sit in the front of a computer anymore this week, call a friend, go out of your way to make someone's day, and also have time for fun. I know that's really hard in the middle of the semester, but please try to make some time for yourself and reach out if I can support you in any way. I look forward to reading your logic models, hopefully seeing some of you tomorrow on Monday for our synchronous session, and I hope you have a great week. I'll see you all week 9. Take care. Bye.